Please give a huge round of applause to Henri.
1, 2, 1, 2. 1, 2. Merci. Can you guys hear me? Yeah? Yeah? Okay. I don't like to, jump on the sound man, but I just want to make sure you guys can hear me nicely. Shout outs to the sound man. I know I have 30 minutes, even though it says 0. So I'm good with that, whoever's controlling things. So for the first time ever, I've had my slides ready, and I'm actually proud of myself. So if you guys want to download them or take a shot or whatever you do, even though I'll be sharing my deck later, but if you want to follow along, you can. So let's get cracking. My name's Henri. This is my Twitter handle. It's also my Instagram handle. But my last name is not Helvetica. It's just a nom de plume. I thought it'd be pretty interesting, but I always get this question, is it your last name? I say, no, people get up and leave. But dead serious. So thank you for staying. But the funny thing is, if you do Google my real name, you get this, where I'm actually a deceased person. So once again, don't believe the internet. But I'm glad to be back in London, I'll say this much. But I'm actually hoping that this doesn't happen tomorrow morning when I go for breakfast. Because a couple trips ago, I was here with my brother, and we went for breakfast, and we had this, and I was just like, I don't know what to do with this. I think I ate the toast, and I gave out the rest. I mean, I left it there. So, but yeah, I'm from Toronto. Toronto, my favorite city in the world. Probably yours too, and I'll tell you why in a second. We have an amazing Caribbean festival called Caravana. And Toronto now is, well, Canada actually, you can legally buy weed. Hey, now I'm not sitting here as this sort of like endorsement of travel, but if you do want to come up, you know what to do. And what you're going to do when you do come up is come to my Toronto Web Performance Group meetup. I do like to talk about performance, so if you ever make it to Toronto, hit me up on Twitter, whatever, and we could go hang out and have a good time. So we're here to talk about performance, certainly. User experience, for sure, because they sort of do go hand in hand. So essentially, I'm going to get right down to it. Welcome to Planet of the APIs, a tale of performance and user experience. Yes, I like to play around. It's funny, I'm not the biggest movie fan, but I love movie titles, and I think they make for great performance talks. So we're going to talk about everything around performance, around user experience, and why it's very important. By the way, that's not the Statue of Liberty at the back. It's just a user holding their cell phone up trying to get a signal. That's how bad things are. So let's get cracking. It's funny. Next year, 2019, the web turns 30. That's actually pretty wild when you think about it. But actually, earlier this year, something equally as important turned 25. And that's actually the first browser, the first commercially available browser, Mosaic. Who knows where this was conceived, where it was programmed? What was that? Park? No, not quite. Who said Illinois? Oh, there we go. Oh, Mr. G Unix. Okay, of course you knew. But yeah, it was, believe it or not, it was programmed by a gentleman who was, well, and his team working part-time for about $7 an hour. Imagine that. But it was a considerable achievement because that same person, Mark Andreessen, went on to say, this software is going to change everything. Now, yeah, you know, a bit of an understatement, I'd say. It was definitely a very significant moment. Now, another piece of trivia, one of his partners programming Mosaic, Eric Pina, birthday was yesterday. Useless information. I thought I'd throw that out there. Seriously. But another significant person in the web community very early on went on to say this. For me, things started exploding with the invention of the browser Mosaic because suddenly the internet was accessible to the average person. Now, I would say that's sort of like a half-truth or maybe a half-falsity, however you want to call it. But in 1993, no one really knew what was going to happen. I mean, it was just like an amazing invention, and they were just regaling in the moment. Why? Because that year, 65 million users downloaded Mosaic in 18 months. Now, it made certain people jealous, like Microsoft, and we all know what happened after that, but that's a separate talk. But fast forward 25 years to today, this present moment, we have over 4 billion users online right now, and that's in 2018. And, you know, no one could have predicted what was going to happen thereafter, because really what we know is this: they're getting online, they have access to the internet through mobile devices. And this is nothing that anyone could have predicted, really. And not only is half the world online, but like I said, the majority of people are on mobile. Now, another significant moment was this, November 2016. And you might be thinking, like, what was I doing in November 2016? I might have been watching some NFL, maybe. No. Well, essentially what happened was this. The mobile and tablet internet usage exceeded desktop. Now, if you really think about that, this is a moment in time where it's really, like, it's not going to change back ever again. You know, people are on mobile, they're accessing the internet through mobile, and it's only growing by the day. And this is like the worldwide average. If you really start to dial down, you're going to see what's happening here. Africa, Asia, India, 63, 65, 35 or so, Asia. You see what's going on. You see what's going on in India right there as well. Now, if you really deep dive and you look at the user growth since 2000, Africa, 10,000%. India, 10,000%. And again, mostly through mobile devices. I thought this picture was amazing. You know, a community that shuns electricity, shuns automobiles, but when they're not reading and having ice cream, they're Facebooking friends. This is the penetration of the mobile devices and the internet right now. Now, so why is this important? Well, you know, we get paid through mobile. We pay bills through mobile. We order Uber. We get Uber Eats all through mobile. We flip through IG, Instagram. We slide into DMs through mobile. So it's very important that when, as a developer, you're essentially creating your sort of like single-page apps and whatnot, you keep this in mind. Now, why is this important as well? Well, one of the toughest parts that we have to deal with is resource loading. And resource loading, we also have to deal with the network. Now, let's look at global connections across the globe. 4G, 3G, 2G, we see what the numbers are, but it's not necessarily all 4G around. I know we're in London, you know, major metro, it's all good, but I'm sure on the outskirts it starts to wave around that 3G level. And then it can go a little deeper, not necessarily out here, but you know, in some developing countries, we do have predominantly 2G levels. Now, this is actually a really interesting podcast you should listen to, but this episode specifically, they talk about how in major metros and just on the outside, you know, people who have such bad internet, they're actually getting together, pooling resources to create their own ISPs. So just so that they can have decent internet. That's how important the net is right now. I'm just waving to people I saw. I know, pardon me. And again, it comes down to resource loading. Now, earlier, there was a conversation about JavaScript. Well, let's talk about JavaScript. Let's look at the JavaScript that's being sent down the wire to desktop and to mobile. And you see, it's not a huge difference. And that's a big crime right there. We're sending almost the same payload down to a mobile device that's not really handling the JavaScript like a desktop would. Now, what's worse about this stat here is that on a per request level, there's about a 1 kilobyte difference. So they might as well be the same. And in fact, yesterday, Harry Roberts said this. Now, it might be a little bit extreme comparing JavaScript to Flash. You know, some people might take offense to that. I didn't. But the fact is that he was doing some research, and he was like, this is not good right now. Now, let's look at image bytes. Man, I love talking about images. And again, here, you can see that, once again, image bytes that we're sending to mobile are almost mirroring what we're sending to desktop. And you'll see in the top right corner, we're sending at a greater rate more bytes down to the mobile device than we are to desktop. How is that possible? And here's the worst part. On a per request level, we're actually sending more image bytes down to mobile. Now, that's another story, because that's image management, and which is like just absolutely crazy. People are messing that up. We can get into some other stats here. I mean, this is a classic one that people on the performance side kind of know. They've probably heard before. 53% of users will leave if things aren't loading in 3 seconds. Yeah, we know that. It gets a little worse. 77% of pages load in 10 seconds or more, with the average loading in 19 seconds. Now, you might think like, you know, dude, 19, actually, you know, I've heard worse stats. Well, let's figure out what 19 seconds feels like. There's a timer. There's a timer.
Please look at me.
All right, thank you, Pat.
Thank you, everybody.
Actual facts right there. That was not fake news. Now, despite this hilarity, this is reality. I mean, pages are taking a while to load. And really and truly, I can get into some more quotes like this one right here. Resource loading is a delicate dance that can be delightful, but also destructive due to device damper and limitations. I love this quote because it's mine. Facts. But to you know, let's get serious for a minute. You know, engineers are really trying to improve the UX. That's without a doubt. They're going through, you know, a lot of different means to try to achieve that. And part of it is measuring what's going on with the app. And you can't improve what you can't measure. And that's where Firebug came in a while back. Joe Hewitt, who wrote that, said he created Firebug so he can understand and look at some of the resources and how they were loading and how fast they were loading, because he needed to know. Now, web performance APIs, or performance APIs generally, are the browser's solution to real-world measurements. So we're actually going to take a look at a bunch of some that I like, just to sort of share with you guys, and so you can understand what exactly some of these great engineers are doing to help us out as developers. That wasn't supposed to happen. So let's start. All right. Paint timing API. I'm a big fan of this one right here. We're going to look at the first paint, first contentful paint, first meaningful paint. All right. So the first paint, it reports the time when the browser first renders after navigation. This excludes the default background paint, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Now, essentially what this means is it's looking for the first time the browser is rendering anything, a speck down to the screen. And it gives us an idea of how fast things are rendering. Now, we could look at this timeline right here. Animation, well, it's actually not an animation, but our first paint is probably occurring at that 2.5 second level. Now, first contentful paint is going to report the time when the browser first renders any text, image, et cetera, et cetera. You'll be able to read this on the deck. This is very important, FCP. This is when the user is going to be like, okay, something's going on. I see some text coming in. I see an image coming in. Images are very important. They create engagement. They keep the user engaged. I just said that. Now, the first meaningful paint, I don't want to get into the weeds. It gets not so much complicated, but I'd say FCP is the one you want to take a look at. But this is something that, you know, if you want to get a little gangster, you can look at this as well. But for our purposes, we're not going to spend too much time here. And then on MDM, you can look at some great examples. I mean, how to sort of get some of this information. But it is one that you want to definitely keep in mind. There's an example at the end. I want to show you how you'll be able to use the FCP and how it's going to be useful in your journey. And support here, we're looking at Chrome. We're looking at, what is that? Opera, and we're looking at Android, the Android browser as well. Intersection Observer. This is one that I like as well. Essentially, it enables developers to understand the visibility position of target DOM elements relative to the intersection route. Now, again, I'll translate that. You're able to essentially insert some elements and have a good idea of when they're coming in, how they're positioned. And I do have sort of an animation to show you, and I hope that you guys can see this. I'll get out the way. So this is an example, actually, that I found on CodePen that I like a lot, so I used it. Now, you're going to see where, and also right here, you'll be able to see the images come in. And it's essentially like glorified lazy loading. Now, why I like to talk about this one specifically is because, again, I go back to the conversation about the image bytes being sent down the wire. I think it's very important that you lazy load. Images are always going to be one of the heavier assets, if not the heaviest asset on the page. And quite often enough, you know, if you're not lazy loading, you're probably sending way too many bytes down the pipe for no reasons. Now, here, in terms of the support, we have Chrome, we have Samsung Internet, shout-outs, we have Edge, we have Android, and it's in development at Safari. So this is good news. Keep that in mind. I thought this one was interesting, Media Capabilities API. Now, earlier again today, we heard conversations about low-power devices. So you may not always want to send everything down the pipe without checking if the device can actually handle it. So here, a little definition as well. But essentially, this is actually pretty interesting because you'll be able to query, say, a screen capability in terms of handling like particular bit depth. You'll be able to check on whether or not it can handle a particular video, a codec, et cetera, et cetera. Now, again, this is taken from MDM, and you'll be able to see and play around with the code block yourself as well. But this is actually a very interesting API. And support, what do we have? We have Chrome again, we have Android, and we also have Opera. Now, without a doubt, this is one of my favorites, Network Information API. I talked about earlier today how we can't really trust the network. 4G, 3G, 2G, you know, you've heard, you know, the term Li-Fi, you know, where you think, you know, everything's gangster, you got 4 bars, but really you're not getting anything. It enables the web applications to access information about the network connections in use by the device. I think it's so important because, again, we're at the mercy of the network. Everything can be smooth. If the network's not working, nothing else is going to work. Now, what do we get out of that? Downlink, in terms of bandwidth, what's available at the network level. Effective type. Now, here what we'll be able to check is whether or not we have 4G, 3G, 2G, or slow 2G. Now, you know, the browser sort of has its own sort of definitions in terms of what that's going to mean. But, again, you'll be able to query it and say, okay, well, I got slow 2G. Maybe I only want to serve text. I got 3G. Oh, you know what? Maybe I'll serve him some images, but it might be a lower res. Round trip times, you'll be able to check that out as well. And the save data header. Again, very important. Now, when the client sends that out saying like, hey, this user wants to, is a little data sensitive, doesn't have the best plan, doesn't want to download high-res images, this is going to help you sort of like negotiate and potentially provide some a sort of lower bandwidth resource. And again, you could jump in. Here's a quick little, example of what you'll get out of that. But the key is here, again, the tools are there for you to provide a better user experience by sending less resources down the pipe when the conditions aren't friendly, or when the user's like, hey, save me here. Now, support. Firefox, yay! Chrome, Opera, and again, Android browser. Now, this one I kind of added last second, simply because I came across a tweet and a site, and I thought that was pretty cool. Part of the service worker API, like, I always thought, like, who wants to go offline? Like, when it was first introduced, I was like, offline, like, what is that all about? Who needs to go offline? Well, I'm going to raise my hand. So I've been here since, I'm from Toronto. I've been here since, God, I think I landed yesterday or the day before. I've been offline the whole time. Before I came here, I downloaded, the local map so I wouldn't get lost, because these little side streets here are crazy. But I am offline, literally. And here's an example. I thought this was pretty wild. So Jeep created an offline capable site. Why? Because their users go in the woods, et cetera, where there's probably, wacky internet, wacky connectivity. But this site right here, fully functional offline. And it tells you how to, like, put up a tent and, go out and get your own food and just, fish and stuff like that. But the fact is, again, that is offline capable. So the Cache API is going to help you do that. Obviously, you can install a service worker if you want, but you don't have to. Little things that you want to think about, again, providing a decent user experience for your user. Now, again, this is a specific example, but I don't know, maybe you have like a little blog with some information you want to send down the pipe, and, I know London, you guys have the tube. Let's go. Something to think about. Now, support is actually pretty gangster here as well. Everyone but Edge, but I'm sure they're coming around the way. I'm going to get booed for this. I know this is being recorded. I'm probably going to get slandered online within a couple months when the videos go up. But I'm going to talk about a deprecated API that's been removed. But I thought it was pretty interesting, and I put the X there so no one forgets that it's recommended to not use. Resources eat up battery life. That's all you need to know. I could tweet out a study that came out like 2013 maybe. They equate resource loading, CSS, JavaScript, images, decoding. That eats up the battery. Now, you have situations where you want to check potentially, not always, but you want to check the status on the battery. Is it going to be, you can connect that back to the media capabilities API. Is it going to be feasible for this user to play this video? Little things like that. Now, again, I could be wasting my breath talking about something that's deprecated and they're recommending for you not to use, but what ends up happening, you can read that, is this is the support. It's actually not even that bad. Samsung's still in there, shout outs. As I keep going. But this is one I like as well. And And again, I like to talk about images. You want to talk about eating up memory, you send the wrong image down the pipe, it's just going to chomp that memory up. And in fact, on the Android side, one of the major issues is images, handling images, eats up the memory. You get crashes more so on Android than iOS, but these are challenges. Now, this allows the app to tailor their content to device constraints. Hey, low-power devices. This allows users to consume content suited to the device and ensures they have a good experience and fewer frustrations. Again, trying to have a proper user experience is a key. Something that you can play with as well. Now, the support here, again, fairly common. Chrome, Opera, Android. Now, a lot of these clearly are, they're deeming experimental, but quite often it's just like phase one, they're probably coming down the pipe outside of the battery API. So, where am I here? What can we all do with this at the end of the day? You know, all these APIs, it's like, what the hell are we doing? You know, one of the things that we talk about in performance is, you know, what are your competitors doing? You know, how fast are they? Are they low? Do they have a better user experience? Earlier this year, I'm a big basketball fan, and quite often enough, I spend my nights just, you know, DevTools open and, you know, basketball streaming on the other side of the screen. And I wrote this piece where I compared the first contentful paint between sports blogs. Sounds pretty like niche, you know, but I thought it'd be kind of interesting. But I ended up getting some interesting results. Now, these are North American sports blogs, so a million apologies. But if you don't know them, at least you'll see the results and see where I'm getting at. Now, this was Bleacher Report. And you can see the histogram, and we'll say around the majority of people were probably getting a decent experience by 2 seconds, 2,000 milliseconds. But then I compared it to CBS Sports, who was doing probably a little bit better. Okay, so now we have something to sort of like work towards. And then I went to ESPN, and clearly their developers doing some work. And they have obviously a much better distribution for their users, because the majority of the users are probably getting something decent by 1 second. SI.com, out to lunch, and we have Yahoo Sports. So what does this mean at the end of the day? You can use some of these metrics, some of these measurements to really understand where you want to improve, if you want to improve, which you should. And this is just the tip of the iceberg, like I said. I mean, you can use some of these APIs readily right now and create for your users the best experience possible. Now, I didn't list them, but you could also take a look at some of these hints and interventions that are coming around the pipe. Does anyone know, you know, or has ever heard of like client hints? Yeah, no? Well, I'll post that. I'll post a link on Twitter. Definitely look that up. You know, Chrome likes to talk about these browser interventions because they want to make sure that everything is as smooth as possible. For example, I got 2 minutes. A lot of the sort of like experimental APIs that are coming down the pipe, say behind flags, are to get a better handle on the network. They're talking about potentially being able to cap JavaScript when they're in a 2G network. You go back to that network information API. If it comes out as 2G, they'll be like, no JavaScript. They're talking about potentially giving you warnings of when a page load comes up and it's beyond a meg. There are a lot of things that these engineers are doing to try to, you know, cap some of our little mistakes and save the users from a horrible experience. So I hope you enjoyed that little conversation about user experience, the APIs, and everything that's available to us to use. I hope you can go back and start to play around with these things. Go check them out at MDM. Now, I couldn't end this talk without some jokes. Does anyone know who this is? Huh? All right. So what if Biggie was a data scientist? You would get big data. All right. So clearly you could tell that's a pin, and that's my Levi's jacket, by the way. So I do these like corny little rap pins just for fun. Someone has got a set of these under their chair right now. If you just want to reach underneath and find out, just check. Someone got a little bag, a clear bag. Just check. Who got it? No one? I swear it must be there. Oh, we got a winner right here. That's my man. Okay. So that's a little gift for being patient with me. So thank you very much. You can find me on Twitter. The deck's available online again. And if you want to follow Rapper Turned Dev, you're going to hear some more rap jokes. Thank you.